Alright, we did Michelangelo, and my name's Kevin Blackley.
My name's Cole.
Alright, so Michelangelo, the painter, he was known to be more of a sculptor than a painter. He wasn't too fond of painting. Even he would sign his letters as Michelangelo, the sculptor. He created frescoes, in which frescoes are considered to be some of the most magnificent and important works of art now. Fresco painting is a method of painting water-based pigments on freshly applied plaster, usually on wall surface. And he created some of the most famous frescoes in the world, and some of these are his best works of art. The first one is the ceiling of Sistine Chapel, which took him from 1508 to 1512. His technique was fresco, in which it was the first time he ever really painted. It was painted because it was requested by Pope Julius VII, as Julius wanted to rebuild Rome back to its former glory. The ceiling is over 5,000 square feet of frescoes, which is just all paint, and more than 300 painted figures are on the ceiling. He did a vast majority of it by himself because he ended up firing all of his assistants. The Last Judgment is the second one. The technique is also fresco, and it's located in the Sistine Chapel, which is in Rome. It took him about 4 years to complete this one as well. At the age of 60, he was asked to paint the Last Judgment. It's a depiction of the second coming of Christ, in which the second coming of Christ is the final and eternal judgment by God of all humanity. And as you can see, in the middle is Christ. So Christ is right there. And then right next to Christ is Mary. And then all his saints are around him. And then to the left of Christ is would be the demons being pulled down into hell and shipped off to where they'd be tortured by demons. And then to the right is the blessed being pulled up from their graves and into heaven. This painting was influenced by the way his life was going. It was 25 years earlier he painted the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, and he was concerned about the fate of his own soul, and he became famous for his artistic genius and as well as outrageous response from people due to content of picture. And it was a very controversial piece because of all the nudity that was in it, and it was considered to be disgraceful because of all the nudeness, and shameless because it was painted in a chapel. The difference between the ceiling and the Last Judgment is that the ceiling was God's plan to redeem a fallen mankind. It had ideally beautiful and heroic figures, and it shows the beauty of man created by God as male and female, and it shows that there's hope, a beautiful world that God created. And then in the Last Judgment, Christ appears as an angry judge, and the poses that the figures are making seem to be ugly and awkward, and he uses power of ugliness to portray the terror of the Last Judgment. His figures are muscular and seem tortured in the Last Judgment, and there's a lot of horror and terror. This early Renaissance comparison is Botticelli, which was in 1481, which was right before Michelangelo's time. And these three paintings were all also in the Sistine Chapel. And it took Botticelli 11 months to complete all three of these, compared to Michelangelo, which took him 4 years to complete both of his paintings. Everything that's painted tells a story. It's stories that have to do with the Bible and religion. There are no nude figures in Botticelli's work because Michelangelo was really the first person to incorporate nude pictures into his work. And there's not much facial expression in these, and there's also lots of color. And then post-Renaissance comparison is Annibale Carracci, which the painting on the screen is called The Love of the Gods, which took about 11 years to complete. It's also a fresco technique, so it's all just paint. The expressions of the figures influenced other painters, which led to the influence of Barocchi, which was a technique that was developed throughout Rome shortly after this time. And the figures, they look like they're sculpted into the surface because they look so real.
Now, some sculpting talents of Michelangelo. He first sculpted this one when he was 17 years old. It's a relief sculpture, and it portrays